Welcome everyone. This is Meg from Flow Financial Planning. Thank you for joining me today. Today I wanted to talk about a trend I see in people's attitudes towards their own personal financial situation versus sort of the situation around us in this country. And I'm noticing this because when people reach out to me because they want to talk with me, they're interested in working with me, I send them a questionnaire before we even talk. And one of the questions I ask in that questionnaire is, do you feel optimistic or pessimistic about the future? And the trend I am noticing is that more and more people are responding like this. I feel optimistic about my own personal future, but pessimistic about the future of the economy and the country in general. And I can identify with that sentiment. I share it to an extent. And I thought it would be helpful to sort of unpack that idea, that conflict, so that we don't just wallow in ambivalence and uncertainty, so that we're actually still doing what we need to be doing for our finances and our career. So the first thing I wanted to discuss was actually a reality check on that personal optimism. And I don't mean to piss on anyone's optimism parade. Optimism is a wonderful thing. It generally makes us happy. It enables us to take on projects and endeavors that are sort of risky. I mean, I needed a fair dose of optimism to start my own financial planning firm several years ago, and that's turned out pretty well. But what I suspect is that what a lot of people in the tech industry, their optimism about their personal situation is not based on some sort of internal constitutional optimism, but instead based on the fact that for the last several years, both the stock market and especially the tech industry itself has been going gonzo. Salaries going up, every performance review, more stock compensation, company stock values increasing all the time, recruiters poaching you from one job into another, startups easily getting initial funding and then subsequent rounds of funding. It's really hard to be in that environment and not feel optimistic, right? Everything's great. But I would encourage you during this time of optimism and rosiness in your personal situation to think about what's going to happen when the tech industry implodes. Because it's going to happen. It's already happened once, early 2000s. I was actually laid off during that implosion. I don't know when it's going to happen again, but this is just the natural cycle of industries and of markets in general. It doesn't have anything to do with the tech industry in particular. So what could happen to you the next time it implodes? Could you lose your job? Could you lose your job and have a really hard time finding another one, maybe 6 months or a year? Could you take a pay cut? Could you get less stock compensation, or the stock compensation you've already received is now worth way less because this company's stock value is down? And when you're envisioning, when you're having this thought, doing this thought experiment, think about what resources you would rely on. What personal resources do you have? What kind of financial or skill resources do you have? Who are the people you could rely on? Both personal and professional resources that you could rely on to get you through those difficult times. I think it's a really important thing to do, especially when times are good, to just occasionally think about, all right, bad times are going to happen again. What am I going to do when they do happen? Second thing I wanted to talk about in this scenario is it's a great example of figuring out what you can control and working on that, and figuring out what you can't control and trying not to spend your cycles on that. We can't control politics in this country. I mean, at least not individually. Yes, please vote. Yes, please support the causes you care about. But there are millions of other voters, and there's a hell of a lot of money awash in our political system. So, we have limited influence, right, as an individual person. We certainly can't control what the stock market does. We can't control what the real estate market does. You can't control what the tech industry does or what your individual company does, unless, of course, you're like a C-level officer or something. So you can't control those things. What you can control is how you prepare for events in all of those domains and how you respond when those events happen. And there are 4 major categories I wanted to talk about ways that you can take control, things that you can focus on that will actually help you. The first one is what you save. Second is what you spend. The third is what you're doing to grow your career. And the fourth is how you're invested, just random ordering, not in order of importance. Saving is first and foremost cash cushion, right? Like how much cash do you have? How long could you survive on it? How much are you saving for the long term? Traditionally, retirement, work optional, financial independence, that sort of thing. And then there's this in-between period, what I like to call your sort of opportunity bucket. Things happen in 5 years. We don't know where life's going to be in 5 years, but it's probably going to be significantly different than it is now. So you need to be saving and also investing for that period of life. Maybe you'll want to go back to school, change careers, have a baby and stay home. Maybe you'll want to move to Canada. I don't know. But the more money you have, the better you're going to be able to survive and maybe even thrive during turmoil in political and economic and industry, those arenas. Second thing is spending. Obviously, this is the flip side of saving, but I think it's important to go beyond just the total monthly spend. What exactly are you spending your money on? How much joy or satisfaction are you getting out of those spending choices and those spending habits? Are there any ways that you could trim spending now without actually sacrificing your satisfaction? A lot of us spend money without really thinking about it, and so we don't get much joy or satisfaction out of a lot of our spending choices. Because obviously the less you spend now, the more you can save, the easier it is to cover your expenses if something bad happens. The third is career. You need to be, growing and developing and building your career. How are you networking? Right? You can network in a million different ways now. Online forums, over coffee, at meetups, at work, over email. You need to be doing that regularly. I don't really have an opinion about how you do it, but just do it. And secondly, how are you continuing to grow your skills that make you attractive to your current employer or future employer? Are you taking classes? Are you reading books? Are you doing training programs? Maybe even a degree? I don't know, but you need to continually invest in your career in exactly the same way that you need to continually invest in your financial life. And the fourth area is how you're invested. And this has to do with your portfolio in general, your investments in general, and specifically, or especially rather, how much you're invested in your company stock. Because the stock market and your company stock are going to tank at some point, right? That's just, again, the natural cycles of the market. I don't know when it's going to happen. It hasn't happened in about 9 years. That's when we had the Great Recession. Stock market's just been going up steadily since then, and certainly several big name tech stocks have been going gonzo since then. But if you're heavily invested in stocks, let's just simplify it and say if you're 100% of your money is in stocks, the next time the stock market crashes, you could easily lose over half of that money, right? And that's okay if you're investing for a really far away goal, so you've got time to recover, time to wait for the stock market to recover or for your company stock to recover. But it's not okay if you either don't have that long time frame or you don't have the stomach for it. If you're going to freak out and sell everything, as it's losing value, then you're invested too aggressively. I know this is really high level, but investing quickly turns into a million different rat holes that I don't want to go down today. So what are my 2 pieces of advice for dealing with this conflict between personal optimism and general pessimism? The first one is prepare for the worst, right? It's going to happen. I don't know when, but it's coming. So all those things I just talked about, saving, spending, career, investments, work on those now when times are still good. You want to build resilience into your financial and professional life. Have a bigger cash cushion, save a bigger opportunity bucket, network more, build more skills, make sure your investments are appropriate for, the time frame you're investing for and your ability to stomach downturns. So definitely want to prepare for the worst. But the second piece of advice is sort of contradictory, seemingly, to that, and that is don't take yourself out of the game prematurely. And when I think about this, I think about something that I think it was Sheryl Sandberg who said in her book Lean In, which admittedly I didn't read, hence my uncertainty. But I think she observed that young women took themselves mentally out of their career before they needed to. They saw marriage and especially motherhood coming down the pipe, and they knew that it was going to be difficult to balance a career and motherhood. And so in anticipation of that, they sort of started checking out possibly years before they actually had that conflict. And they missed out on all sorts of growth and achievement by doing that. And they didn't need to do it as soon. And there's a real strong parallel between that and your financial life, which is, shit's going to rain down on our head at some point. But if you hunker down now and just keep everything in cash or don't really work on your finances because, God, the world out there is scary, you're going to miss out on all sorts of opportunities to grow and strengthen your financial situation, to do the very things that are going to make you more able to survive and even thrive during the upcoming turmoil. Right? So yes, lay that strong foundation, but then continue to actually invest, both literally and metaphorically, in your financial life. Don't eschew all things that are risky just because the outside world is scary at the moment. So I hope this has given you something to think about if you share that idea of internal optimism, but sort of external pessimism. It's a difficult position to be in, for sure. This is Meg again from Flow Financial Planning. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next month.